So let's take a look at the way that we can use corrections in Java in our actual program here. So I have got our Hello World program open again, and if you recall, we had created this printer class and a series of classes to aid in using a printer, and we are just going to keep on expanding on this example here. If you remember back in the first part, we had created basically a paper tray, and we had made our print method basically be able to check to see if the paper tray is empty and only print out copies when it had paper in the paper tray. So we would call this paper tray use page, and that would get rid of a piece of paper from the paper tray by reducing the count, and then when it was empty it would tell us to load more paper. What we are going to do here now is we are going to change this. So instead of just printing out the text to the screen, we are going to simulate printing to a real page. So we are going to create a page class here, and we are going to create a collection of pages. And so as paper is parted from the paper tray, we are going to store a collection of pages so we can see what was printed. So let's go ahead and create a page class real quick here. I'm going to create a new class, call it page. And for this class, we are going to just create a variable to hold what is on the page. So we will just call this printed text. And then we'll create a constructor here for our page. Now we will check a string, call it text, and it will set our printed text. And then we need some way to be able to get this text from our page. So we want to be able to just return what is on the page. So we'll create a method here, a public method, call it getText. And we'll make it return a string, and we'll just return printed text. So now we are going to use this page class to basically store text that we get printed. Instead of printing out the page to the screen, we are just going to print it to a page, and we are going to store this collection of pages. And so we are going to store this as a list. So the way that we are going to do this is we are going to go into our printer here, and we are going to create a property or a private member variable, call it pages, and we are going to make this a list. So I'm going to use this interface, call it list here, and I'm going to use the generic implementation to create a list of page, of type page. So it's going to be a list of pages, and we are going to set this equal to a new array list of type page. And we will call this pages. And we will need to import these types here. If you remember, Ctrl plus Shift plus O in Eclipse will let you automatically import types. And so we are going to choose java.util.list because this is the list implementation and interface. Now you can see that we have got a variable here, call it pages, that is of type list, and list is the interface of the collection. And array list is an implementation. And remember, there is multiple implementations that could exist for this collection. We are going to operate based off of this interface because we don't care what the actual implementation is. We just care that it obeys this interface. And there's different implementations you can choose from. Most of the time, array list is what you are going to use, and that's what we are going to cover in this example, just so you can get an idea of how to use collections. So what we will do here is this list will now allow us to basically hold a page or multiple pages. So we are going to go ahead and go into our print method, and every time that we would have printed to the screen, instead we are going to create a new page and add it to our list. So the way that we can do this is we can do pages.add, and then we are going to just add a new page. And we are going to give it the text to print in its constructor. So what's going to happen here is, this is how simple it is to create a list. We have declared our list up here. We have initialized it to an empty list, an array list, and then we can just add items to the list, just using add, and then we just create a new page every time. So every time that a copy would go through here, we are going to get something added to our pages. So now we will end up not printing to the screen anymore, but we will fill up this collection of pages. So let's create another method here to print what was on the pages, or to see what was on the pages. So I will create a method here called output pages, because that's really what we are doing. And this output pages is not going to return anything, but what we are going to do here is we are going to iterate through a list. And this is one of the things that collections are really good for, is to be able to iterate through them, or to go through them in a loop. And we are going to use our for each loop in order to do this. And you are going to see what kind of seems like magic here at how this actually works with collections. So I'm going to go and put for here, and then I'm going to declare a variable of type page, and I'm going to call this current page. And then remember, this colon here, it basically means in, and we are going to put pages. So we are basically going to loop through our pages collection, this list of pages, and we are going to get every single page out of there, and it's going to get stored in this current page variable for the iteration of that loop. So then we are just going to go ahead and print it out, and we'll print out current page dot get text. So let's go ahead and modify our main program to use this. So I'm going to get rid of what we had created here for the exception handling. And then for our printer, we are going to print a certain number of copies. Let's print 5 copies. And before we do that, let's make sure we load some paper. So we'll load 10 pages of paper here. So we have plenty of paper. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens now. You can see nothing has been output, because what we have ended up doing is now we are actually, instead of printing to the screen, we are printing to our collection of pages. We are creating a new collection of pages, adding a page for each page, but we created this new method called output pages. And actually we need to make sure that this is public, so that we can access this here. Okay, so now that that's public, we should be able to call printer.output pages, and this is going to loop through all of our pages and print them out to the screen. So let's run this now, and then now you can see it's printed this 5 times. So just to recap what we did here, we basically went into our printer class and we created a collection of type list, and this is the interface. Then we initialized this to a concrete implementation, array list. So this gave us a place to store pages. Then we went to our print method and we made it so that instead of doing this printing directly to the screen, we just added a new page every time. So we have created our new page, used our constructor to create this new page, and it gets added to this list. So this list that we declared up here ends up getting a bunch of pages added to it, and then when we call it our output pages method, we just loop it through each page in that list and we printed it out. So that's it for using list. It's not that hard to do, but you can see how useful this is in a lot of situations where you need to gather up some kind of collections of things and later loop through that collection to do something on each one of those things.